Okay, I'm not selling my collection, but I have realized that because of pre-orders, I got one of my cards up way too high. And now it was time to start looking at some of the things in my collection that I'm willing to part with. And surprisingly enough, it did not take that long to figure out what I was willing to part with. Now I have chosen 5 items, and if you're interested to find out what those 5 items are that I was willing to part with in my collection, please stay tuned. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of My Tiny Point of View, and as I stated in the intro, and surprisingly enough you guys are still around, I'm not selling my whole collection, but I do have to part with some items, and I have chosen 5 items. Now before we get into that, I do want to say, if you're interested in letting me spend my money so you don't have to, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Let's get into those 5 items, and the first item I have decided to part with is the GB Boy Color. Now what is the GB Boy Color? Well, if you haven't watched the video, I did an unboxing and a review of this guy, and those links will be in the description down below. GB Boy Color is one legit Chinese Game Boy Color clone. As you can see, the device looks exactly like the Game Boy Color in every direction. It has your D-pad, and a questionable D-pad. This is probably the worst thing on the system and the thing I do not like. I don't like the shape at all. They should have just went with a traditional D-pad. I don't know why they went with that D-pad. You have your A and B buttons and your start and select. These buttons are plastic, not rubber, but they still work pretty well. You have a power indicator light. On the side you have your link or your extended cable here. You can plug in one of those Game Boy Color lights. I don't have one, so I never tested it. Then you have a volume rocker, and on the top the infrared, which honestly I don't even remember what that can be used for. And on this side you have the on and off switch. On the back you have a traditional Game Boy Color slot. As you can see, here's a Game Boy Color cartridge. This is Donkey Land 2. It clicks in here. There's a switch in here when this cart is inside the cartridge slot. Onboard ROMs that are loaded on this, which I think are about 60, will not play. Either way, a really good Chinese Game Boy Color clone, but honestly, it was one item in my collection I was willing to part with. I mean, I'm not going to tell you I won't miss this. I have played it a handful of times. It does work really well. Alright, the next item I decided to part with is the Retro Fighters Jab Controller. This is a really cool looking NES controller. It has your D-pad, your A and B buttons, your start and select, and it has a clear and turbo. Now it also has 2 bumper buttons and 2 trigger buttons, which obviously we all know can't be used on the original NES. And you have your analog sticks. Now these analog sticks pretty much mirror the D-pad. Most of the buttons on this cannot be used with the NES. Now where this does come in handy, it is a dual link cable which has your NES connector and your USB. So when you plug this into a PC, you can map some of these upper buttons for, let's say, SNES games. So you can have your X and Y on these bumper or triggers. Other than that, obviously you cannot use this on a modern game because there are not enough buttons. Great NES controller. I have done a review of this guy, a full review that can be found in the description down below as well. I am not overly attached to it, so this guy is being sent on his way as well. Next guy I've decided to part with, and this I might miss a little, and that is the Hyperkin Retron HD. Now when you look at this, Hyperkin's design team did a really good job of the design of this console. Honestly, if the original NES looked like this, it would have been amazing. Not that we haven't all grown to love its boxy look. You have your 2 original NES ports on the front. You have your power and your reset button, and you have the composite out, HDMI out, micro USB for charging, and you have your aspect ratio switch here, and also on the bottom there is a PAL and NTSC region switch as well, so you can play both PAL and NTSC, and you have your original NES cartridge slot on top. And when this guy's powered on, the cool thing of this, the Hyperkin logo does light up. Now I've decided to part with this because, with all due respect, at the end of the day, as cool as it looks, it's just going to sit on the shelf and look nice. Now, this one will be featured in an episode or two of We Play. I'm probably going to play a game that I've never played before, a game that has not released in the States. So if you have not subscribed, do subscribe if you're interested in seeing that with the Hperkin Retron HD. I bid you a fair due. Alright, my next one is the SNES version of the Retron HD, and that is the Supa Retron HD. Now, when this guy was being announced, I instantly fell in love with the name. And the console, just like the Retron HD, looks amazing. Hyperkin did a really good job in the design market. Honestly, it's done a better job in the design market of the Retron HD series compared to the Retron 5, although the design of that console is pretty cool too. You have your power, you have your reset button, and you have an eject button, which most clone consoles don't include. Honestly, I think it's a kind of cool feature because the games do get stuck in there sometimes. You have your SNES cartridge slot, and on the front you have your SNES 2 ports, and you have the light up logo as the other one. On the bottom you have your region switch. On the back you have your aspect ratio switch. You have composite out, HDMI out, and your micro USB for charging, just like the Retron HD. Now, I'm not gonna lie, after selling this or after sending it on this way, I will miss this guy. Honestly, the design is really cool. I haven't even done a review of this. I've only done an unboxing, which that link will be in the description down below. I will feature this on an episode of We Play, playing a couple of SNES games that I have played and games that I might not have played as a child, and then I will ship this guy out to some lucky person. It is a pretty good clone system. I would much rather keep it, but times are hard. The last but not least, number 5 on this list of things I was willing to part with in my collection, and that is the Atgames Flashback HD. Now, a lot of people won't be surprised that I'm getting rid of this. Now, you may have already known I was getting rid of this because of that video, Flashback HD Revisited, where I finally put this guy through its paces and tested a couple of games on it. Something that I did not do in the original review. I don't think I really tried to push this. And I said that this console was not horrible, and after making that video, I still agree. Now, a lot of people hate on this. They hate Atgames. Atgames produces garbage, and like I said, there is some truth behind that. And with the up and coming Mega Drive Mini, they're really going to have to prove themselves on this one and make us all believe they deserve to be producing anything when it comes to retro gaming. Now, the best thing about this is that it looks like the original Sega Genesis Model 1, which in my opinion, and most people will agree, is the best looking Sega Genesis. You have your on and off switch here. You have a menu button, which used to be the reset button on the original Sega Genesis Model 1. You have your 2 Sega Genesis ports on the front, and on the back all you have is HDMI out and a proprietary 5-volt charger. As I did not notice, and irrelevant to this video, it lost a foot. The console itself is really light, it's really cheap. I think the $80 price point was way too expensive for this. It's not horrible. This guy will be going on its way, but because of that revisited video, I am going to be playing a couple of games on the We Play, and one of those is the games that's in it right now, and that's X-Men 2. I've forgotten how much I love this game. Well, those are the 5 items I've decided to part with. In the comments down below, let me know if you were forced to part with some of your collection. Let me know what those were. Let me know what you think about the 5 items I decided to get rid of. As you can see, none of it is original hardware or any of my original games. Not that I haven't done that in the past. My Dreamcast and PlayStation, I gotta get those guys back. If you liked what was contained in this video, please hit the thumbs up. If you found the things in this video to be of some sort of value or worth spreading the word, do consider sharing amongst your friends and social media. And as always, if you're interested to see me spend all my money so you don't have to, do hit the subscribe button.